Welcome back to Ladies in the Market, the podcast where we talk about real business journeys, creative pivots, and building income in ways that actually fit your lifestyle. We talk about life-work balance here a lot, so I think you guys will really love this episode. I am your host, your beautiful host, as you remember, Alicia. And today's guest is somebody whose story proves that business doesn't always start with a plan, and it can sometimes start with curiosity, grit, necessity. I want to introduce Kira Hartley Klinger, who is a longtime reseller, author, and creative entrepreneur who built her business from the ground up over more than 20 years, all while raising kids, running a household, and staying deeply present as a parent, which I know a lot of you guys can relate to, of course. Kira, welcome to Ladies in the Market. I'm so happy to have you. How are you?
Good morning, Alicia. I'm great. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Of course. I love to, as we always do with our guests, they already know where I'm going, start at the beginning, right? I want to learn more about what pushed you into starting to resell in the first place, and what did those early years really look like from you?
Yeah, so I started out young with kids. I had 3 kids by the time I was 26. I really wanted to be the present parent. I was kind of a rotten teenager, kind of started getting in trouble roughly around middle school. I didn't want to be the parent that somebody else was raising my kids. I wanted to be around and know exactly what they were doing 24/7. So, I didn't really go out into the workforce per se. I always kind of hustled on the side to try to contribute towards the family income. So I
Yeah.
mostly just, worked for myself, whatever I could scrounge. I would clean people's houses. I would write resumes for people. Yeah, whatever I could find. So what happened, I ended up getting divorced at 40. I still had one child left in the home. She was a 14-year-old girl that there was no way on God's green earth I was going to start to leave home alone. So I was like, what am I going to do? I got to make some money. And internet's new for people my age. I'm 58 and I didn't have internet really when I was raising my kids. So everything that I've had to learn on computers, yeah, I had to be the old dog learning new tricks.
Mm-hmm.
But my sister was the one who brought up eBay. eBay was within its first decade. I started to dabble on eBay in 2003. I think they started in like maybe 1996. Um, but she just says, well, why don't you try it? So I would find things really cheap and just play around with it and see whether or not I can make money off of it. And I still had a side job for probably the first 4 years that I started doing internet resale. But yeah, one shop did really well. It ended up turning into 2 shops, and then it became my full-time job.
And hearing the progression there, like you've had to experience, especially with a teenage girl. I was once a teenage girl. We were probably all once teenage girls, and we know what the thoughts we were having around that time. And then a lot of parents who have those kids, because I'm young, childless currently, don't know what that's like. I'm still raising baby siblings, it feels like. It feels so. I love asking that, like, how are you doing all of this while dealing with a teenager who is like hormones and everything is crazy and I hate everything, and because right around that time it gets like,
Indeed.
yeah, that's the mindset of that girl, and you seeing yourself in that. How are you balancing out, like, saying like, oh, okay, I want to contribute more. I want to bring more to my family, to my stability, to what makes sense for me. How are you balancing that out and raising your daughter mentally, like juggling that? I can imagine that's a effort.
Yeah, I love the word that people use a lot these days. I'll just say that my daughter was always extra, and she was always extra everything. She was always extra moody and extra hate to use the word needy, but I mean, I had my oldest and my youngest, and they were the two that demanded 95% of my attention. And the middle child took his 5%. And I feel like I didn't even know him growing up. He just was not the
Mhm.
demanding child. So, um, I am thankful she was involved in a lot of things. When I was 14, I was involved in hanging around with the wrong kids, smoking cigarettes, and getting into any kind of trouble that I could possibly get into. She's 14. She is a cheerleader. She is plays basketball. She is, you know, already interested in working little side jobs, whatever. So she's active. She does school plays and she's on student council
Mhm.
and she's straight A's. So, she's on the right course. So yeah, I didn't want to screw that up. So I was working in the elementary school. That was my side gig. So my hours during the day, I mean, I was working on the playground, but I was always home by the time she got home. And, I was there to take her to school. Her activities outside of school kind of kept her busy. I went to all of her games. I was that kind of parent. I wasn't the kind of parent that yelled from the bleachers, but I was the kind of parent that was always there.
Mhm.
But yeah, I had to go to sales. I had to find time to go to sales and to buy the things that I was selling. But a lot of times I just stayed up really late working. I wouldn't go to bed till 1:30 in the morning. It just was, yeah, a longer day at the time.
Mhm.
But I was 100% able to be there when she needed me. And, somebody quoted me in their blog the other day, and I didn't even realize that what I said made so much sense until after somebody wrote it down. I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But it was always about sticking to my core principles and being flexible on the rest.
Mhm.
So, my core principle was that, yeah, I don't want my daughter running ruckshaw while I'm trying to make a living. That was a core principle. Core principle was, yeah, I need to put food on the table, but things that were flexible. Okay, how many hours of sleep am I getting a night? And what am I going to do to make this money? So you got to pivot sometimes.
Being adaptable to the needs and no, I hear that 100%. What kept you going when, and I can already kind of anticipate your answer, but I want to hear it. What kept you going when things were like, because of course you go through slow months, uncertain
Yeah.
months. Is this actually going to work moments? What kept you, like, what was in that moment? Can you put yourself back in that and remember, like, I'm feeling this feeling, but this thought brought me back? What was that thought?
So her dad, he was paying some support after the divorce. And that support definitely helped get me to the next great big sale sometimes. It helped fill in the gaps. At one point, very early on, he lost his job and he just decided, well, I'm just not going to pay support. So there were 6 months that I was not getting any kind of financial support, for my daughter for whatever. And boy, it was lean.
Mhm.
I've talked about this moment before, but when you brought it up, it's the first thing that came to my mind. I can honestly remember on a very, very snowy day being out in the barn with my daughter's horse and bawling my eyes out because I did not know how I was going to pay the rent that month. I didn't know how I was going to, go to the grocery store, pay my utility bills. It was tight. But yeah, it's kind of funny. I've had a lot of little tiny miracles happened that I call them my little nudges. I've heard people call them winks. People call them all sorts of things. But I think that anybody that has faith or is a believer has had at least one of these instances in their lives. So I come out of the barn on this snowy night and there's drifts of snow everywhere. And somehow I see a white envelope that's like fluttering in the wind, just the tip of it in the snow, white on white, right?
Mhm.
Like, what is that? Well, some time ago, my best friend had borrowed some money from me to buy an airplane ticket for her daughter that desperately needed to get out of a bad situation. And I didn't have anything but a credit card to give her, so I let her use my credit card. And I just forgot about it. So in that envelope was like the $300 that she owed me. And
Mm.
it's like, how did it not land in my mailbox? How did it blow out into the snow? How did it not blow away? How did it not get scooped up by the snowplow? How did it just flutter at me out of nowhere when I'm out in the barn bawling because I can't pay my bills. And it just was enough to take another step.
Mhm. So, not and I love how, like, this is not like, "Oh, I just trusted relentlessly and then something," like, it wasn't that. And sometimes it's understanding that, like, the trust of self, and sometimes just saying, like, "You know what? I don't know how we're gonna do this, but we're gonna do it." And
Yeah.
allowing things to come even when it looks crazy. Like, of course, when you're like, "I don't know how I'm about to pay this bill. I don't know how we're gonna keep this afloat," whether that's business or personal, you're in panic mode. You can't your nervous system is on fire. Anybody's nervous system is on fire. So they can't regulate and think enough, okay, well, something's gonna work out, or something is gonna, or maybe I could, like, you're so in this one space that you might not see fully how the universe might be working in your favor. And the universe is telling you, like, and that's probably a moment where you felt like, you know what? I trust my idea. I trust where I'm going with this. Like,
Right.
obviously, I'm being covered in some sort of way, somehow. I don't know where it's coming from, but I'm being
But
covered.
I got this.
Right, right, right. And those moments show you that, right? And cherishing those. I think sometimes when you're in such hustle mode, you look past those, not even consciously, but just because you're so in the next thing and getting to this one point that you don't see the creaks of something coming through for you in a way that just seemed almost unreal, unorthodox. Like, how did this happen? Like how you said, like, this could have simply been caught in the snowplow. This could have got past me super easily, like, for reasons out of my control. But no, like, something allowed me to see this to let me know that what I'm doing makes sense and to trust my intuition with this, right? I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I could have found it 2 weeks prior, and maybe I wasn't so hard up for money when I found it 2 weeks prior, and maybe I would have gone out and spent it on, who knows what, bought more stuff to buy
Mhm.
and sell, something, who knows? But to come at that exact moment where you feel like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not gonna be able to make it." Like I said, it's a nudge, and
Yeah.
sometimes all we need is a nudge, and it could be anything.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. Now, I want to get into a pivot that I've reading your story that I've seen. And this is kind of going back into things just happening sometimes and you got to flow with it and trust it. Discovering vintage fabric and textiles pretty much almost by accident, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
How did you realize that there was this market for this vintage fabric? Like, what did that discovery look like for you, and how did you respond to it in real time?
When I was buying and selling things, anything was fair game because I really knew nothing about nothing.
Mhm.
I was brand new. I had no idea what I was buying or selling. So it was all kind of trial and error. But I didn't have the money to really make big investments. So I didn't really care if I was losing a couple dollars here, a couple dollars there. But when the fabric came along, it was one of those things I didn't know anything about. Now, I'm quite good with my hands. I can do upholstery, I can sew. I cannot make you a dress, but I can make a fairly respectable quilt. I know how to thread a needle. I know about fabric. But did I really understand what fabric was made of, the contents, that this is silk and this is cotton and this is corduroy and this is velvet? I mean, maybe yes, maybe no, but there's so many little things about fabric that really no. Again, I had no clue. But it was something that I came across cheap. It was somebody's leftover fabric who had passed away, and here's all of her sewing stuff in the backyard, and nobody some people want it, yeah, but there's so much of it, and I can pick it up for not much money, so why not? Give it a try. I really think that's gonna be like the story of my life. Why not? But it's true. Give it a try. So I brought it home, started to learn things about it. I started to follow some other sellers, started to see what other people were buying, learned things about like burn testing fabric to determine what kind of fibers were in the fabric. I learned how to date fabric. I mean, this was all this really gradual process. But what happened, I'm only selling on eBay at this point, and I'm acquiring more and more and more fabric because it's really starting to actually interest me.
Mhm.
And I start to get these regular customers that would come and maybe they'd fill a cart. Maybe instead of one thing, maybe they were buying 5 or 6 things. And I started to realize, okay, well, the more I have of this item, then the more I'm likely to have larger orders. It's something that can pay me every day if I keep an inventory. But then I started to realize, okay, well, it's really starting to get lost in the sea of everything on eBay. It really kind of needs to have its own audience. It needs to be its own thing. So I
Mhm.
moved it to Etsy. Didn't want to give up the eBay shop though, because eBay's where my heavy hitters live. Etsy is where my heavy hitter customers live, where my repeat customers live. They keep coming back for more and more and more and more. But it just doesn't generate the larger sums of money like eBay does. I like to say that Etsy's where my family is, and eBay's the one that keeps putting food on that table. It keeps
Mhm.
allowing me to buy these large fabric acquisitions and then to put them on my Etsy page. So, yeah, 2 shops. Etsy has been around. I guess I started on Etsy in about 2014, but I don't think I fully moved my fabric shop there till about 2016.
Mhm. So that was so between what was the year jump between store 1 and store 2?
I started on eBay in 2003. I did not I kind of monkeyed with it. It was a hobby, something I did with friends in the
Yeah.
beginning. I didn't start selling seriously on eBay until about 2008. So 2008 I got serious about it, and probably 2016, 8 years later is when I opened up a second shop for good. It's not when I started selling fabric, but it's when I realized I really need a separate shop.
Oh, okay. Beautiful, beautiful. So, that 8-year journey with the first, store, what made you start sharing your stories alongside your products, or how often do you do that?
Quite honestly, I always wanted to write. It was the only thing I ever wanted to do. There was never any backup plan from the time that I was a little kid. I wanted to write. And I tried to write when I was in my 20s, and in my 30s. That was one of the things that I would do early in the morning before the kids got up for school. I put it all out there. I wrote several large novels. I had an agent. I was playing the game. I just never got published. So when I got divorced, now I did get published in my 30s, but I sold a couple of magazine articles. So it was something completely random, something completely different. But by the time I got divorced, I really couldn't think about writing a whole lot anymore. I needed solid things that made money. There was no time for dreams anymore. So what happened on my Etsy pages, I mentioned that the fabric really started to interest me. And part of the thing that interested me were the stories behind the people that owned the fabric before me. They had fascinating
Mhm.
histories. And I could listen to family talking at the estate sales. I could talk to family members myself. And if there wasn't a story about the family, I just really started to get into behaviors of people. Like I'm a people watcher. So the competition would drive me crazy, but then it would make me laugh. And the auctioneers would drive me crazy, but then they would make me laugh. And there was just so much. I was going to so many sales at this point, and there was so much juiciness to my day. My husband would honestly I did get remarried, and he would honestly, I'm sure, get very tired. I could see him tuning me out because I just kept telling the same stories. I was like, okay, I gotta tell somebody. So I would just start to write these narratives on my Etsy listings. This is where the fabric came from. This is something funny that happened that day. Just a couple paragraphs. I didn't expect that people were going to resonate so much, that people were going to really enjoy knowing where this piece of fabric came from that they're incorporating into their project, you know? So, yeah, after a while, they started to say, you really need to write a book, write a full length book. And it's like, no, really?
Mhm.
After all this time, I'm 50 years old now. Now, you know. So that's how it all started. And I just, again, why not?
Yeah.
So I did.
I love that. I love that mindset of why not. I think it'll be very I think a lot of especially fresh entrepreneurs, like people who are in your position where it may not have even been the plan or this like big thought and thing and the concept got to be fully realized, like you just kind of find yourself in it, but you still treat your life, no matter what age you're at, as why not? Like
Yeah.
I aspire to be 40, 50, 60 and still have that, okay, why we can't do this? Like who said
Yeah.
we can't do this? Like I want that. I love that. I admire that. That's the only kind of conversations that I want to have is with people who are like, who said we can't do this thing? Like, who said that this was impossible? Who said that somebody won't resonate with this? Of course, it has to make sense, but who said we can't get this done? I love that. I keep hearing you say that, and it resonates with me personally. I love it. And the storytelling aspect that you're sharing with your audience, like, that's the importance of niche, right? Is because you believe it or not, a lot of people, because I hear this a lot, people aren't interested in reading anymore. They don't want to, like everybody says, I'm not reading all of that now. Like that's a thing. And
Right.
it's like, no, there are niches of people who are book lovers. And if obviously, if you're a writer, you're a reader. You can't be a good writer without being a good reader. So there are a lot of people who they're in their corners. They may not be scrolling on TikTok all day. They might not be making TikTok videos, or they might not be into certain trends, but there are people who value. You know what I'm saying? Something that actually like touches you and makes you go, okay, I see myself in this. Like, no, that's still in demand. You just got to find them. So I love hearing how your customers react and how they bring back out that origin dream in you, right? And say, hey, no, like, no, we want to see more of this. And it just goes to say, for me, at least, be your full self. Somebody's gonna be like, okay, no, I see myself and I want to learn more about it and I want to keep up with this thing. Like people need that. Especially now. Now, I want to pivot into one of my favorite parts of your story, specifically that I found so fascinating was how organic and human your visibility was with a book. That book that came after customers saying like, hey, you need to do this thing. You slipped it into one of your customer packages, which led to a relationship with a TV producer. Can you give us more insight to how this was just one of those things? I was like, oh, okay, wow.
It's like you can't make this stuff up, honestly. I had no idea that what I was doing all along was building a brand.
Mm-hmm.
I just was going with the flow. I was just taking one step in this direction and that direction, and okay, well, let's put it all together. So yeah, the books were really great at holding hands with the shop. It's
Mm-hmm.
like all of a sudden I have this package and I have this market and this niche that's all mine. And I really didn't do it on purpose. I didn't set out with this game plan for this 10-year plan of this is how this is going to happen and this is what's going to work. It just everything was so organic. Honestly, I never second thought about my success on Etsy. I have such a strong customer base. Yeah, I don't know. I have like 17,000 sales, something like that. And it doesn't feel like a big number because I know sellers out there that have twice that. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, they don't have a book, too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I've got a completely different customer base than what they have. So what happened, I have this following, I have these customers who told me to write this book. Okay, I wrote the book. So what's the next step? The next step is to print out these notes that took me 5 minutes to write, and then I print them out, and then I cut them apart, and I make a nice stack. These are my notes. They're going to go in my packages. It's free advertising. And, it says, okay, all you people out there, all my fans, my wonderful customers, you guys said, hey, you really should write a book. So guess what? Fabric Wars is here. Go check it out. And of course, you can get it on Amazon, but you can also get it in my shop, and they can even get it signed for themselves or for somebody else, whatever. So I change it up every now and again, what I have written on there. And I always handwrite something to make it more personal because I'm sorry, AI is not the way of my future. I still try to keep a human element in this whole thing.
Absolutely.
6 weeks after I published the first book, I got a message on Etsy. And she said, hey, my name is Yvonne Bernard. I am a TV producer with Lookout Entertainment. And how do you feel about reality TV?
Mm,
And I just kind of looked at it. I'm like, huh? I don't remember knowing no Yvonne Bernard, but Etsy has this thing. It'll say up in the corner if, past orders, what they've bought. And I'm like, okay, she bought something from me. And I open up the order and she had bought a whopping $3 piece of scrap fabric from me. And
mm,
she got a note in her package and sent me a message. It's just, yeah, all those
mhm.
years of trying to get published and a pre-printed note about a book just found the right person. I had no idea she was a customer. I wonder sometimes, do I have any other famous people that are customers and I just don't know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's possible. Like, it's very much so possible. I hear that a lot with people who are in e-commerce or are in like retail or are in certain spaces, and like you wouldn't a lot of celebrities or a lot of people in certain entertainment spaces, or just depending on where you at, people with resources, you wouldn't believe how many people who just casually, like, they're not always working. Sometimes they're people too. They need a piece of fabric just like somebody who is, like working their regular, like, they're people too. And that just gives you a reminder of the beauty of authenticity and connection. I think you nailed that without even trying here.
Well,
Just
and they
being
can tell
yourself.
me, quite honestly, they can come clean. I will keep a secret all day. Tell me who you are. We will talk sewing and crafts all day long. I will never tell a
Mhm.
soul. It's fun. It's fun to figure out who your customers are, whether they're famous or not. I've gotten to know so many people from so many walks of life. And yeah, we talk shop all the time. I've made a slew of friends.
Mhm. And what is I know every like this wasn't like okay, I'm going to learn the tactics of marketing. I'm going to take these marketing tactics and do it in my business and see what works. It wasn't that. But I do want you in your own words to tell me, what do you feel like can people learn from your approach to marketing specifically, especially those who feel intimidated by like the idea of putting themselves out there, or what if this is not the right language, or what if this isn't the right person, or what if, like, what would you say to people who are still like, I don't know.
I honestly feel like authenticity wins every time. This I mentioned AI and there's parts of it I have used it for this, for that, for the other, but when it comes to the human connection, I don't care if it's 50 years down the road. I really honestly feel like we're all still going to crave that human connection. There are
Mhm.
certain sites that I cannot stand buying from because there is no human connection. There's nothing. You can't email a person. You can't ask a question and expect a human response. We crave
Yeah.
that. It's a human element. So if putting yourself out there as yourself is not right for one person, that doesn't mean that it's not right for every person. We're each crafted uniquely. We're supposed to be ourselves. We're supposed to connect with somebody else that's polar opposite or that has something in common. It's just the way that it works. So I was broke so many years in my life. I became debt free probably 3 years ago, finally, after climbing and struggling. I started with nothing. It took me forever to pull out of that. So when I went into this situation where I needed to market and promote the books, I didn't have money to spend. And even now, when I do have money to spend, I'm still a tightwad. I'm still have that same mindset of where I don't want to spend money. So anything that I can figure out that doesn't cost me any money, I'm all in. I've
Mhm.
done the notes and the packages. I have gone on Instagram and I have made videos introducing myself or running a sale in my shop or showing how to do a burn test, showing what I know how to do. And it
Mhm.
takes a little while to get comfortable having yourself on camera and doing these. I'm like the biggest stage fright person on the planet, but I got over it. I got over it because
Mhm.
I needed to. So
Mhm.
yeah, I can get on there and I can do a video first take. Good enough. That's me. I'm happy with it. Yeah, I made a mistake. Yeah, I made a funny face. I don't care. They know it's me at this point. I'm going to put it out there. I do not pay to promote my videos on Instagram and Facebook. I have tried in the past and it has never netted me anything more than what it does than just putting myself out there. And you get new followers, you engage. There's a lot to be said for the whole engagement thing, knowing your audience, knowing your people, and letting them see you. Again, why not? What do you got to lose, really?
Especially when you're in a space where you've taken this leap, you can't have I'm learning this personally is that you can't be one foot in and one foot out. It'll never work. Like, it'll literally never work. You have to find your groove, find what makes sense for you. And a lot of people, I like how you say, hey, I utilize social media. I just don't depend on social media. I love that. And it just, again, it reinforces what it means to know who you're talking to and have that direct connection. And I feel like everything is case by case because everybody's targeting different people. Everybody's structure is different. But for business owners who are like, social media is like, it's cute, but it's not for me all the way. Like, I can utilize it, but this does not need to be my driving force because, and I say this too as a marketer, social media can go down tomorrow. And then what?
Yes, exactly.
And then what? Instagram and Facebook could shut down tomorrow. Very simply. It can be on like a week. Something happened, they gotta make some bug changes, whatever, and it's a week. Now you can't reach your customers for a week straight. You know what I'm saying? Like, or you can't reach your people for a week straight. Having that one-to-one connection is very, very important. And I do believe that platforms, especially like a Etsy, is very it gives that personalized feel where social media does feel kind of more like you just kind of like communicating with the world and seeing who has something to say with you back. You know what I'm saying? Like it's different.
Can you even imagine if social media just went away? How many businesses out there would just not exist anymore?
Yeah.
How many,
Yeah.
lucrative people that are out there making money because they've gone viral? It would go away. It just like
In a
that.
split second. Yeah. In a
And
split
I've
second.
had people say the same thing about, Etsy. Yeah, Etsy could go away too. But here's the thing. It's not I take now maybe eBay would ruin me going away. I don't know how I would fix that animal. But one of the things that I also did when I started the Etsy shop, well, actually when I published the books, it wasn't when I started the shop, but when I published the books, is that I found out that I had to start taking it to my people. And I knew who my people were. I needed to go to the crafters, the quilters, the things like that. And that's when I first started getting over my fear of public speaking. I started putting myself out there to quilting guilds, you know, groups of women and men that get together and quilt. They have guest speakers every month. So I started writing to quilting guilds. And I think I booked a dozen meetings within my first year. I'm still doing those here and there, but it's not just Etsy that I'm known through now. I just keep creating this bigger and bigger and bigger package so that if Etsy went away, maybe I could open my own website. I've already got my customers, I've already got my email base.
Mhm.
It's just I don't know.
I was about to say the
Can't depend
data
on just one
piece.
thing.
That data piece is so like I scream this, and anybody that's been listening to our podcast knows that I scream this almost every other episode. Data is the most important thing you can have as an entrepreneur. I don't care how big or small your business is. I don't care how niche or what they call it, the general public response. Like that doesn't matter. If you don't have any data, to back up what works and what doesn't and who's responding and who's not, you
You're
just have
flying
slimmer chance,
blind.
right? Right, literally, you just have slimmer chances of actually being able to see and feel it and make strategic decisions, right? So even if you're somebody who isn't like, oh, I went to school for entrepreneurship and I went to school for business, and even if you're coming in like, hey, I don't know what's happening, I'm like a little kid in this, I need help, you can still utilize data and understand the power of data and use it to your advantage. That is extremely important.
Yes. And
Now,
I went to
with
school for nothing, Alicia.
yeah, right. That's what I mean. Like, it's not a matter of, it's not tied down to that. It's tied down to the willingness and your growing capacity to understand. I just said this to somebody not too long ago. I was like, you don't need to specialize in everything. You don't know. The moment that you try to take on, like, you want to know the cracks and creaks of everything that goes a part of running something, I think you start burning yourself out. You just need to have a basic understanding going in, like even during the learning process, because you're learning. Coming out of the learning process, you need to have a basic understanding of at least the importance of something, or how to collect something like data. How to, okay, oh, I see the patterns here, or I see the buyer behaviors here, or I see what works. Let me keep doing this. Oh, I see this is okay, but it's not really. Being able to make those assessments are crucial, and they reflect. Again, you don't
Yes.
need to have a big team to be able to do that, but of course,
You need to have your finger on the pulse.
yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Your first book opened a lot of doors, podcasts, speaking gigs, signings, and eventually a second book. How did a platform like Podmatch or podcasting in general, or any other sources, how did that add to your journey as a creator and a creative in general?
I was invited to my first podcast right around the same time the producer reached out to me. So you have to realize that at the time I'm getting this attention early on and I'm kind of freaking out a little bit. You know, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I never even thought about podcasting before. She is a knitter, but she is also a textile enthusiast. And so she has talked to other people on her show besides just people who knit. So
Mhm.
she said that she wasn't feeling well over the holidays, because I put the book out in October of 2023. She picked it up over Christmas. And she said, I was reading it in bed while I was sick. And she said, I need to have you on my show. I was, okay. And again, this goes back to my fear. I wasn't really doing the guest speaking yet. I was still really struggling with public speaking of any kind. So I was like, okay. So I signed up with her. And when we
Mhm.
did our conversation, it went well. I thought it went well. I enjoyed it. She enjoyed it. It was much easier talking to her than I thought it was going to be. And she said, if you put out a second book, let me know. I'd love to have you back on. So it was,
Mm.
I don't know, probably a year and a half before I had the second book done. During that year and a half is when I was doing a lot of my guest speaking for quilting guilds and whatnot. And I put out the second book and I'm like, I really need to email Janet and see if she still wants me back on. And she jumped at it. She's like, yeah, I'll have you back on. So then it occurred to me, there's a lot of work that goes into putting on a show for a quilting guild. I have to pack the car, I have to unpack the car, I have to set up, I have to tear down. And it's usually involves an hour, 2 hour drive, at least in the beginning where I was going. Um, so I thought, well, you know what? I haven't tried podcasting yet. I wonder if I could do that for a little while as a way to put my voice out there, to put my books out there, to put my shop out there, to put, and I kind of went into it kind of singularly focused on, hey, I have a fabric shop. Hey, I have books about buying and selling, just looking at these key things. And so I get onto Podmatch and I'm looking for people that are into buying and selling, and I'm not finding anything. I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of weird. Okay, well, what am I going to do with this now? But then I started to kind of read between the lines. and kind of look at what they were telling me, how I matched up with some of these different places or these different shows that they were recommending me for. And I started to realize, you know what? I really have some valuable things to say about business. And I have some
Mhm.
valuable things to say about women in business and about startups and about marketing and about all of a sudden this list started to form about all these things that I knew things about that I didn't realize I knew things about.
Mhm.
Um, and I actually, it kind of inspired me a little bit. I booked, I think, a dozen shows within the first 6 weeks, and I completely surprised myself. Alex at the time, the founder of Podmatch, he had put out a request for people that wanted to be part of his, podcast virtual event. So I said, okay, well, yeah, why not? I'll put a video out there. So I did this 17-minute TED style video about how to get more matches on Podmatch. Because I kind of cracked the algorithm and that I do have more things to talk about than just fabric or buying and selling or writing books or, I'm a whole menu. So I sent it to him and he reached back out to me himself, which really surprised me again. And he said, you know what? I'm looking for videos like this that help the podcast community, the Podmatch community. And he said, and while I don't want to invite you to the virtual event at this time, I do want to put your video on my blog page. And I do want to make it accessible. And I do want it to be something that pops up when people say, hey, how do I get more interviews?
Mhm.
And, again, it was like, oh, okay. Wow, where'd that come from? But it just really has expanded again, once again, my niche, my circle, my abilities, my this package that I can put out there to help other people, to help myself. It's like this endless infinity thing. It never quits giving.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. And I wanna highlight how I feel like you are continuously speaking in ways where you're giving, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're giving people something, like, between sending that video over to Alex and saying, "Hey, I think this could be useful because I'm sharing my story about how my experiences worked out for me." That's in the spirit of let me see how I feel like when you are moving from that specific space, that's when you start getting a lot of stuff back. And it's not like this, okay, I'm doing this for the purpose of this. It's just, no, I want, like, how can I contribute? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like that thought process is, I think you might have cracked the code to progression in business and in life. You just have to you have to move you have to move with this sense of I'm giving, I'm contributing, I want to help, right? I want
Yes.
to give my piece because I feel like I have something here. I love that personally. I want to talk about this new chapter that you stepped into, becoming a hybrid author, telling stories about your camp life on your farm with your grandchildren. Like you're in a whole new, just after, cuz you said you've been doing professionally since, you said when, 2008,
Yes.
and we're in 2026. So we looking a little less than 20 years in this, and you're in this space. How your definition of success in peace have changed over the years? I think that's a better question. I like that one.
I think that all those years that I spent scrounging and broke and praying to be able to pay bills, it- it's really easy to get obsessed with the money aspect of life.
Mhm.
I mean, money controls everything. And when you don't have enough of it, it controls like every waking thought. How am I going to get more?
Mhm.
And when, we're not rich. That was honestly, I never really cared about getting rich. I just wanted to be able to pay my rent when it was due. I wanted to be able to pay my electric bill before the next one came. I wanted to keep my phone from getting shut off. They were simple wants in the money department. So when those things fell into place and I stopped needing it so much, Our house is paid for, our cars are paid for right now. I mean, everything we own is paid for. And with the camp and the grandkids, trust me, we have a lot of stuff. It just I don't know, it just lost its importance. I don't need to grow my business anymore. I am 100% happy where I am. It's manageable. I can do it just me, myself, and I, just like I've been doing all along. It's kind of like a passion project. I've made friends. I like where I am in a business world. And I'm also 58. So I'm starting to think about, okay, well, maybe I don't really want to do this forever and ever and ever. Now, mind you, I have a really bad habit of buying faster than I sell. So I have enough inventory that could probably last me till I'm 102. But I don't know that I want to really keep going once I hit retirement. Family has always been huge to me. I
Mhm.
prioritize my kids, very active in their lives. So when the grandkids started coming along, I want to prioritize them too. So yeah, we have 8 grandkids between the two of us. We started having camp. We have a 5-acre hobby farm. I think we have almost 30 animals. But the grandkids started coming to camp when the youngest was 2, and she is 13 right now. So now the youngest, we have three 6-year-olds, 3 8-year-olds, 11 and 13. They're going to kill me if I got that wrong. But anyway, that's that's where we are. And they all live roughly about 2 hours away. So we decided every year for a week over the summer, they're all going to come together. And it's
Mhm.
kind of nice because his grandkids get to see my grandkids, because that's really the only time they see each other. But they get to come back together every year and they get to spend that week together. Um, I make photo albums for them after the week is through. They each get like this big fat photo album of all their adventures at camp and whatnot. One year, among all the things we have the pond. We have a pontoon boat with a water slide. The big request is to get a diving board this year, so we're working on that. They have kayaks, they have go karts, you name it, they have it. They never want to go anywhere because everything fun to do is here. We spent this crazy amount of money taking
Mhm.
them on a field trip to the zoo last summer, and all they kept saying is, "Can we go back home now? Go swimming?" We're like, "Really?" So anyway, yeah, we bought a bus. We bought a transit bus. We needed to fit everybody to go places, go to the movies, go
Mhm.
or go wherever. We bought an old transit bus. Sorry, that's my little alarm.
Oh, good.
I have But we bought this bus. I am very crafty. I painted the outside of the bus turquoise, orange, lime green. It looks a lot like the Scooby Doo bus. Inside, I painted it. There's turquoise fur hanging from the ceiling. My husband's mechanical. He put a horn in it that says "Ooga." Um, so yeah, we have this bus, and I don't know. It was my mom that pushed me to write the stories. It was my best friend who paints who said I really want to paint the stories. So yeah, let's do it. Let's start a kids book all about the bus and camp and put it out there for the grandkids. Yes, for other kids, sure. And that would be my ideal retirement plan. Let's keep putting these books out. I told my friend who does all the paintings, I need 10. You can't have a series without 10 books. So she's frantically trying to figure out how she's going to paint and sketch 10 books for me in the next decade.
I love how you gave like a whole visual picture of what it means to not just have like your fulfilling business, but to have your fulfilled, like have a family be fulfilled and you being able to use your passion project to supply a life for your kids and your grandkids. I mean, that's the goal for a lot of us is let me set myself up so I can set them up, right?
I
And
like that.
yeah, yeah. And you're living that. That's wonderful. That's beautiful. And as far as 10 books, you said 10 books in the next decade, and then that's it. Are you going to stop after that or that's it?
I can't put too much in her lap. I feel like I'm already pushing it with 10. I mean, I can write one of these stories. I have the stories in my brain. That's the beautiful thing about pivoting from fiction to
Mhm.
nonfiction. I'm still telling stories, but I have real life stuff to tell. So
Mhm.
it's great. But yeah, I can sit down and write out one of these stories in an afternoon. The fact that it takes her 6 months to give me 32 full color illustrations, I just have to sit back and be patient. Maybe I need to start another series in the interim. I don't know.
I love how your creativity is just it bounces and you just I want that spirit when I get to that point. I love it. It's beautiful. Now, we have our rapid fire questions. You're
All
going
right,
to give me the
I'm
first
ready.
thing that's coming to your mind. Do not overthink. Okay?
Okay.
Beautiful. All right. One lesson entrepreneurship has taught you that life couldn't.
And not give up. I mean, that's the first thing that popped in my brain. Do not give up. If you believe in it, keep going.
Beautiful. 2, one belief you had to unlearn.
That I am only able to write in one lane.
I love that. That's probably going to be my favorite answer. 3, one piece of advice for women who think it's too late to start something new.
Gosh, don't let go of the dream. I never stopped thinking about writing ever. And if I would have reached the ripe old age of 98 and never wrote a thing, yeah, don't
Yeah,
give up on the dream.
beautiful. I love that. Kira, thank you for sharing your story so profusely and openly. Your journey is such a reminder to not only me, but listeners that business can grow in unexpected, beautiful ways. And I want to make sure to say for listeners who want to check out your books and check out your projects and follow along with your adventures, where can they find you?
Okay, so you can find me. All the books are on Amazon. And it's so funny because since we last talked, I actually published a fourth book. And this one was a book for my dad, about my dad and his dog. My dad has terminal cancer, and his dog is like his most favorite person in the whole wide world. So, yeah. So there's I Love You the Most. That one is brand new. But anyway, you can find all the books on Amazon. It's probably easiest to type in my name, Kira Hartley Klinger. And if you want some kicks and giggles, type Kira Hartley Klinger just into the Google search engine. And there you will find out just how effective tag words are, because I will blow up your computer screen for several pages.
Beautiful. I love that. I'll make sure to tag those links in the show notes and then in description from your Etsy shop and some of your
Yes.
social media pages. Yeah, I got you for sure. And to our listeners, if this episode resonated with you, be sure to subscribe to Ladies in the Market and share it with someone who needs permission to start with AR. We'll see you next time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.